If I could ask you a truly subjective question, something that I've noticed in a lot of your work, specifically in that longest table story, is you love New York. And I just want to ask a very, very plain, open-ended question. Why do you love New York?
It's true. I do love New York. I came here for college. I often say, as a kid who got moved around a lot, right? You survive a revolution, you get kicked around the world. I think for me, landing in New York was the first place that really made me feel like I belong. I think there's a saying that says there's 8 of every single kind of person in New York, right? So there's no one homogeneous sort of kind of person in New York, other than the fact that there's just immense diversity, immense energy, really the land of possibility. That notion that if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. That's very much at the core of New York. And I think the fact that this is not a one industry town, that there's just lots of different kinds of people is really magical. So I always used to make lists of things I was passionate about, like from when I was in college. And New York was always one of those things. So it was something that obviously deeply connected to me. And I think in the pandemic, when I was at Nextdoor, despite being at a pretty intense job that was a tech company, trying to take a tech company public in the middle of a crazy market, when people started saying New York was dead, it felt like a moment to serve the city that had given me so much. And so I sent an email to a handful of friends, and with my husband, Andy, and friend Carolyn, we ended up starting this sort of grassroots movement called NYCNext, where we raised a little bit of money and paid the artists a stipend to perform at a time where the city was really shut down. And we did these pop-ups as a way to just amplify the joy that was New York and to remind ourselves and others about what made New York, New York, right? Sort of the spontaneity, the creativity, the joy that comes from being here. And so that journey, which, the first one we did was right in my neighborhood on the same street we did the longest table. The second one we did was a moment for Broadway, where we were able to get Bernadette Peters and 24 award-winning Broadway performers to sing on the steps of Times Square. It was just this magical moment because, I think to myself, like a 12-year-old kid who immigrated here, like standing in Times Square with these amazing Broadway performers. And I don't come from that world, right? So I had to look up all their names. I mean, of course, we all know Bernadette Peters. And for them to be together, and literally it was at the height of the pandemic. So, everybody had face shields and masks. I mean, and they were crying. They hadn't been together since the pandemic broke in March. So that notion that a couple of people can spark a movement and invite others in to really come up with ideas like that and make a difference, it's to me sort of emblematic of what New York is all about, right? And we did 14 of those pop-ups. It led us to then ask Billy Joel for the rights to New York State of Mind, and again, for free as a side hustle, we all came together and made this magical music video of his song, right? That was written at another time that New York had a difficult time. Like all those things to me are really very much at the core of New York and really at the core of any sort of community, right? It takes a couple of doers not to own something, but to really spark something and invite others to make it their own. I think that's one of the things that's gotten me very interested in sort of my city, right? My city, which can be hyper local down to my neighborhood of Chelsea, or bigger and include the 5 boroughs, the ability to be micro and macro, but also to, make sure that this city not only survives, but thrives and comes out the other end even better.